Oh yes, the people there were very professional, and more so than at the state theaters. The theaters there, like, not unusual for theaters to have problems getting very good technicians, and it was a real problem in South Africa. They lacked really expert technicians, and the good one worked commercially in the film business, and but everybody managed at the State Theater somehow, one way or another. And they did a lot of good work for me at the State Theaters. Each of the 4 provinces had a State Theater. There were choices attractive most to the white audience. Blacks could have attended in the 1970s. Theaters and cinemas were integrated because there were so many boycotts otherwise. People would not allow their work to be used in South Africa in a segregated theater. So in the middle of apartheid, the theaters and cinemas were integrated. But other people than whites rarely attended because they weren't interested in what was shown, or they couldn't afford to go. So, in effect, they were segregated because of economy, too. A friend I had made in Durban while I was working there, Jackie Vermas, had worked commercially also, and she knew the technical director at Haynes Films, and suggested that he interview me to design something, which he did early in 91. Was it in 91 or, yes. And then a year later, when Peter was very ill, he called me, and I didn't remember. He said he was going to call me, but he did and offered me the job. And it started after Peter's death, and it was wonderful to have that. Otherwise, I was sitting in the apartment with the cats alone, except for my friends, of course. But and our maid came in the morning till noon every day. So I had something to go and work on. That was wonderful for my last year there. Well, the book is a love story, a memoir about our life, and it was a life with joys and problems and tragedy, like most lives. It was too short, only 10 years. I had known him 12 years, but we lived together only 10 years. But they were quite a full 10 years, and very memorable, a lifetime. We lived together in Johannesburg, South Africa. We had wondered for 2 years, we had lived apart, and we had wondered how we could arrange to live together. And Peter had applied for jobs in New York without success. And he had a very good job as chief steward for South African Airways. I knew that he would never get something equal to that if he moved to New York. He would be doing something at a lower level and for less money, and eventually become dissatisfied. And that would be very hard on our relationship. And on my second visit to South Africa, I was offered interesting work. So I agreed to contracts there. And I had a whole series of contracts doing interesting work that I was trained to do and I could do and enjoyed doing. We returned to New York often during those years. Peter would spend all of his holiday there. He had a month-long holiday. I would go ahead and stay a bit longer too, so my stay would be longer, and I would work some while I was in New York and then return to South Africa for another contract, to fill another contract. As Peter got sick, I made fewer trips to New York. I was concentrating on him. Eventually, I wasn't taking any more work. I was simply taking care of Peter because he wanted to die at home. And that's what I wanted also, if that's what he wanted. So, after his funeral, I had a marvelous job, fortunately, doing a comedy series for television called Bras Sali's Kitchen, about a restaurant that this man named Sali and his wife had in a black township. And it drew me into the township of Alexandra near Johannesburg. I'd never been there before. I had no reason to go. It was a different world across the expressway into the township. Quite an eye-opener as I took photographs to prepare to design the two sets for the show. So the two sets I designed for the comedy series were the interior of their restaurant and the interior of their apartment. I worked with wonderful people. The book itself will be of interest to the gay community, of course. It may be of interest to other people who have gay friends or relatives. I hope that one section of it will be helpful to some younger people who may follow my problem with promiscuity and sex before they settle with someone. And my story about this in the book, I think will help to convince them it leads nowhere, which they'll discover eventually, and find someone they love and have a good life together.